Minister, thank you for your introductory statement. Before I give the floor to colleagues, let me welcome the Turkish ambassador to the European Union, Mr. Bozay, who's also a regular guest in our parliament. Minister, I will give the floor to the chair of the delegation and then a round of group representatives and finally to our standing rapporteur. Then you can answer to the comments and questions you've heard, and if time allows, I will have a second round. Now, I have seen Mr. Bütikofer. A point of order?
Yes, sir. I didn't like how the two flags were mixed because some of the stars on the European flag were overshadowed by the Turkish star. I don't think we should do that. So maybe the slide cannot be shown again, should not be shown again.
It's not our slide. The Turkish minister obviously had prepared this presentation. But if it's a possibility that you don't show it, when I can see it, I don't think you can see it. I'm looking at the flag, the two flags the whole time.
It had been shown for a while. Oh. It's not visible now, and I would prefer if it wouldn't reappear.
Okay, I hope our Turkish counterparts in Senegal or here in the room have heard this point of criticism. Okay, then we start with Sergey Lagodinsky. For 2 minutes, he chairs the EU-Turkey Joint Parliamentary Committee.
Thank you very much, Chair and Minister. It's great to see you again after our meeting in February. Thank you for your time. Let me start with a sad statement. I think it's very sad that we go into a war of words, and even worse, around fossil fuels, which have increasingly less and less strategic meaning in the world where we're talking about Green Deal. Number two is, let me reiterate two facts. These are facts of life. You cannot change them. One is Greece and Cyprus are part of the European Union. Whether you like it or not, these are two member states. And this is the starting point of our conversation. And of course, we will see and look at their perspective. Number two, this escalation happens not in a vacuum. I would like to make it very clear that we act in solidarity with our member states, and any one-sided actions, any militarist rhetoric coming from outside or from inside, and any harsh measures will lead to a perceived threat perception of our members and part of the European Union, and we will stand in solidarity with them. At the same time, I would like to emphasize that I am convinced that we have a window of opportunity to get together without escalation, without sanctions. I heard your legal position as a legal expert myself. I do not agree with it, but I don't think that the Greek perspective is also flawless. And therefore, we need to get together and to get back to the status quo ante. We need to withdraw all vessels from the questionable waters. We need to sit down together and talk about the new security architecture for Mediterranean. And yes, talk about a new Green Deal, a Green Deal for Mediterraneans, where we would talk about alternative energy resources and not about fossil fuels from the 20th century. So let me express this hope that we should find this window of opportunity and use it within the upcoming weeks. And I would like to hear you, and this is my last question, what are the concrete steps? Not that you're ready to de-escalate, but what are you ready and what are you doing now in order to avoid escalations next week during our plenary? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergey Lagodinsky. For the EPP Group, Michael Galla.
Ja, vielen Dank.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Minister, thank you very much for your statement, and thank you for coming to this group to put questions to you. You talked about your arguments, and it all sounds reasonable, but I also come to the conclusion that your statement is not in line with the results. Since 1982, we've had the Convention on the Law of the Sea, and islands that are inhabited are seen as an exclusive economic zone. And we can discuss this a lot, but we cannot discuss the geographic situation of an island or a continent. It's not a question of fair or not fair. It's a question of how is this covered in international law. And I also think that the Greek islands do constitute an exclusive economic zone. And if so, we should agree on that. But so long that there is no such agreement reached, the Convention on the Law of the Sea continues to apply, and I think it's only right that we called upon you to put a stop to current activities. However, I do welcome the fact that you've stated that you're prepared to enter into a dialogue with no preconditions, but a specific question for you. Your Greek colleague said this morning that we are prepared to submit this matter to the International Court. And I find that to be a very good offer. And my question to you, would you be equally prepared to embark on that path together with Greece and Cyprus? The political question that arises, of course, what is the motivation for taking that step at this time? Is this to turn attention away from political activities? Why this kind of action at this time? I think at all times, particularly when everybody's worried about COVID, we don't need this kind of exacerbation of the situation. Please put a stop to your exploratory activities. And perhaps together you can go to The Hague or support the efforts made by the German presidency. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Michael Galla.
Thank you, Michael Galla.
Thank you, David. Honourable Mr. Minister, thank you for your introduction remarks. Sam Conley asking you to elaborate further your position on some issues related to the topic we are debating today. First, if you say that you follow international law in your actions, then why hasn't Turkey signed up to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS? Second, you are very critical of Greece signing an agreement with Egypt regarding the delimitation of the exclusive economic zones, which you claim violates your continental shelf rights, and at the same time you have signed a similar agreement with Libya. Can you explain us your position, as at the time both you and Greece claim that only one agreement is according to international law? Lastly, you have been very critical of the European Union's position in supporting Greece and the Republic of Cyprus concerning the dispute in the East Mediterranean. However, what are your expectations regarding the EU support to your position if in the past years Turkey as an EU candidate country has moved constantly away from European Union policy standpoints and values? Thank you.
Thank you, Tonino Pizzula. For the Renew Group, Malik Asmani.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister Çavuşoğlu. Thank you for joining our committee meeting today. And as you may be aware, the Dutch, and I'm a Dutch MEP, are generally not known for mincing our words, especially with our friends. With over 400 years of Dutch-Turkish relations, I hope you will therefore permit me to speak freely to you as a friend. Anyone following the news knows that there are mounting tensions between Greece, Cyprus and Turkey, and therefore by default between the EU and Turkey. I hope your presence with us today is a sign that Turkey, like the EU, is willing to find a solution and shares the objective of de-escalation. Nevertheless, I find it difficult to understand why you recently made a statement in which you remarked that if Greece were to extend its territorial waters, it would be cause for war. Allow me to be clear. Renew Europe and myself considers this as a threat, which we do not take lightly, as it's directed to a member of our EU family. We stand in full solidarity with Greece and Cyprus, and that it requires a response. If further threats continue, everything, including more severe sanctions, are on our table. A potential armed conflict between Turkey and an EU member state, just the words alone create damage to the EU-Turkish relationship. I hope you will agree with me that the de-escalation needs to be the top priority right now. Allow me to make a suggestion. What if Turkey shows a first sign of goodwill and withdraws the vessel Uriçreis to a Turkish port? This could be a wise gesture, after which Greece also should do its part by participating in the de-escalation talks. We need to find a constructive way forward through impartial mediation, for example, the ICG in The Hague. What is your position on this proposal? As a vital neighbour, a NATO ally and a friend, it's time to stop the harsh words before they might cause irreparable damage. It's not only in our interest and the entire region, but in my view also in Turkey's interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Malik Asmani. For the ID group, Thierry Mariani.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chairman. Minister, the 30th of August of 2020, we heard the following utterance. The French people, do they know about the price to be paid because of these greedy and incompetent leaders? This declaration was made by President Erdogan, not just full of pride, but for many French people, this is revealing of how aggressive he is towards European nations. Your president, for a long time, has refused to follow the path of international diplomacy. Allow me to recall you occupy the north of Cyprus, fully violating the sovereignty, part of Cyprus, of Greece, and you're present in Idlib, which the UN report has said is the largest remnant of jihadists and foreign fighters worldwide, and you're involved in all kinds of Libyan militia activities. So whatever the Muslim brothers are involved, Turkey is not far. So I would ask, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to find the supreme Ottoman Empire's glory? And are you looking at the current EU, which is not defending its members strong enough, refusing to support France, that you attacked militarily, whereas they were protecting Libya from all arms shipments? Allow me to put two straightforward questions to you. First of all, your actions in Libya and your pressure on the Balkans, is this a way of exerting influence on the two main migratory flows towards Europe so that you can use migrants as an instrument to put pressure on them to get your political way? And secondly, as was recalled several minutes ago by the previous speaker from the Netherlands, we are still negotiating with Europe. But what do you have in common with Europe? Why, on your side, would it not be more honest to say, since the European Union doesn't have the courage to say it, to put a stop to the membership process?
Merci bien. For the Greens, Tinicus.
Thank you, Chair, and I would also like to thank Minister Cavusoglu for his introduction. We know each other already from cooperation in the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, but that's a long time ago already. You described your relationship with Greece and which steps have been taken from both sides, and I can only have the impression that both sides have taken steps in order to escalate the situation, and I think that many of us here in the room really would like to see that de-escalating steps are being taken, because there will only be losers once we will get to further escalation and even maybe a war situation. You mentioned the EU as part of the problem. I found that pretty drastic, and you referred to the interpretation of the maritime law by the EU. Maybe you can explain, Mr. Savutoglu, how you see that. In my view, you denounce the application of the UN Convention of the Law of the Seas in the Eastern Mediterranean, but at the same time you apply that convention in your agreement with Libya. Can you explain a little bit how you can reconcile those positions? Do you acknowledge that Borrell and the German presidency really do their utmost best in order to avoid sanctions being imposed and to find an agreement? And you say you are ready for a constructive cooperation with the EU, but what signs do you give towards the EU in order to really get some progress in this constructive cooperation? I have the impression that the settlement of Cyprus is really, and the lack of any progress in that, is really causing this big regional instability. Do you see any prospect for that process, and what steps and what concessions are you prepared to take in that regard? Thank you.
Thank you, dear colleague. Next, for the ECR Group, our Vice Chair, Witold Waszczykowski.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Mevlut. This is Witold speaking. We used to work together some years ago when I was Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I still remember you as a man of compromise. My question relates to different problem, different nature, but there will be maybe not another opportunity to ask this question. This is a question on behalf of the Christian community. Yes, there is a Christian community still in Europe, although many people work hard to get rid of Christianity from Europe. And the question is about Hagia Sophia, about the monument which used to be a church. And this is a part of the Christian heritage, legacy, Christian culture, faith and religion. And this Hagia Sophia was turned back to mosque. Can you try to explain us the reason, the rationale, why you decided to do this? Thank you.
Thank you, Witold. For the GUI NGL Group, Georgos Georgiou.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Tsavousoglou, my name is Georgos Georgiou, and I am a refugee from Cyprus. Your country is behaving in a provocative manner against its neighbors and Europe. Currently, Turkey is intervening in Syria and Libya. Turkey violates international law and the law of the sea. Turkey is causing tensions, instability and insecurity in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Aegean Sea to the detriment of Greece. Turkey continues for 46 years now to occupy illegally for territories of the Republic of Cyprus. We are pirating drilling in the Cypriot exclusive economic zone. Now you are threatening and preparing for an illegal settlement of the occupied area of Famagusta. Mr. Tsavousoglou, if you really want to help our Turkish Cypriot compatriots as well as your people, there is only one thing you can do. Solve the Cyprus issue in a fair way. Resolve your differences with your neighbors in the region in a peaceful way. Otherwise, history will be relentless for you and your country. Thank you.
Thank you. From the non-inscrit, I give the floor to Kostas Papadakis. Mr. Papadakis, we don't hear you. Mr. Papadakis, I'm very sorry. We see you, but we can't hear you. have you turned on your microphone? Look, we'll try and get back to you. We have one more speaker on the list. So you have 2 minutes' time to prepare. So I'll now give the floor to the Standing Rapporteur for Turkey, Nacho Sanchez Amor.
Gracias, Presidente. Voy a hablar en...
Thank you, Chair. Minister, the European Union has offered Turkey the best it has. We offered you the opportunity to be a member. Being a candidate country means you have to work and converge with the EU with values and interests in policies, alliances, in approaches. In certain areas, you can advance at different speeds, but being a candidate country means you need to converge with the EU. But the Turkey is diverging with everything of the EU, policies, interests, approaches, and this affects every aspect of our relationship. We can see visas, for example, customs union, immigration. The Greek border as well. There's a problem, and foreign policy as well. Libya, Syria. And now we have the Eastern Mediterranean problem as well. But, Minister, we diverge in different attitudes. You use an official narrative to try and defend your interests in a very insulting manner. Now we have this unnecessary exhibition of military capacity. It's to defend your theoretical rights. Do you have to consider Germany as a colony and the fact that the EU is a colonial power? Do you need to overfly Greece? The diplomatic defence of opinions you've done here is just backed up by the ultranationalist rhetoric which you use for domestic consumption, and it drives you further away from the EU's position. The borders of Greece and Cyprus are our borders. They're the borders of Spain, of Ireland, of Denmark. And so what happens on those borders affects all of us. My colleague, Mr. Lagodinsky, said it quite clearly. Remove your vessels from the waters which are contested and come back to the negotiating table. And Chair, I'll finish on this. I also ask you to look at the sincerity of your European drive.
Thank you. Any chances of connecting Mr. Papadakis? We'll give it a second try.
Hello?
Yes, good.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Chair. The situation in the Eastern Mediterranean is really dangerous. The competition among the United States, NATO, the EU, Russia and China is met with that of the ruling classes of the states of the region, with painful consequences for the peoples. The intervention of Turkey in Syria, Libya, the continued occupation of Cyprus, the unacceptable Turkey-Libya agreement, the disputing of borders in the Aegean and the Cypriot exclusive economic zone, along with the Oruch Reis research in areas of the Greek continental shelf, indicate an escalation of aggression of the Turkish state. The Communist Party of Greece raises the issue of not changing the borders and the agreements that determine them. We would like to ask which is the position of Mr. Çavuşoğlu regarding the Lausanne and Paris treaties, as well as the Convention on the Law of the Sea, which defines the same sovereign rights for islands as for mainland coasts, in contrast with the map that he presented. Which is his position on the plan of co-exploitation of the Aegean Sea and the Eastern Mediterranean, promoted by the United States, NATO and EU for their own interests, that poses a danger for the peoples? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. This concludes the first round. Minister Çavuşoğlu, I'll give you the floor now. And I wasn't aware that this flag combination was exactly behind me. There it is again. We don't want this. Please, no more maps and flags. The minister. We want to see the minister and hear the minister. No flags, no maps. Please, minister.